From his earliest memories, Odedele had watched his father, Ajibode, return from the forest. Sometimes Ajibode would stride into the village alone, carrying a large antelope or a wild pig, his face streaked with sweat and dust. Other times he returned alongside other hunters, their laughter carrying the thrill of a successful hunt. Odedele would gaze at the trophies they brought, bush bucks with twisting antlers, bush rats as large as dogs, and the occasional wild bird, feathers bright and glinting in the sunlight. Each hunt, each victory, filled Odedele with awe and an insatiable desire to join his father in the mysteries of the forest. Ajibode was a man of few words, but he possessed a quiet power that spoke of respect and knowledge of the forest that no one could deny. His tall, lean frame seemed made to navigate through thick woods and treacherous marshes, and the scars on his arms and legs told stories of past battles with animals and spirits alike. His presence commanded reverence in the village, and Odedele yearned for the day he could earn a place beside his father. Odedele's mother, Omotola, came from a family of hunters herself, and it was said that her father, Okandele, had once bested a leopard with nothing but his cutlass and a single charm. She was known for her fierce spirit and sharp wit, and many remembered the tale of how she had encountered a massive python coiled in the bushes on her farm. Without a hint of fear, Omotola had removed her head tie, wound it tightly, and placed it on the snake's head like a crown. The snake remained still, as though under a spell, while she walked back to the village to summon Ajibode. Together they returned to the farm, where Ajibode ended the snake's life with his Dane gun, as Omotola stood beside her, her face calm, unshaken. These tales of bravery and respect for the forest were the foundation of Odedele's world. He admired his mother's strength and his father's skill, and in his heart, he dreamed of the day he too would face the forest's challenges. He wanted nothing more than to be a hunter, to earn his father's respect and his mother's pride. When Odede turned 12, his father called him into the compound. One evening, as the sky darkened and the crickets began their nightly song, Ajibode's voice was firm, but gentle. "Tomorrow you will come with me to the forest." Odedele's heart leapt, but he forced himself to keep his expression calm. This was the day he had dreamed of, a day to prove himself. His mother, Omotola, busied herself preparing charms and tying protective amulets into the folds of his shirt. She whispered words of wisdom as she did so. "The forest is wise, Odedele," she said. "Respect it, and it will teach you. Fear it, and it will test you." Her words weighed heavy with her own experiences, and Odedele felt the gravity of her warnings. Before dawn the next morning, they set out. The village was still asleep. The only sounds, their quiet footsteps, and the occasional hoot of an owl. The sky was a deep shade of dawn, as Odedele and his father, Ajibode, stepped into the forest. The world around them bathed in the quiet reverence of early morning. The forest, vast and alive with secrets, seemed to welcome them with the rustling of leaves and the quiet calls of birds waking in the trees. Odedele's heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of stepping into this world of his father, the world of hunters, mystery, and quiet strength. Ajibode carried his trusted shakabula, and on his waist hung a pouch filled with charms, each one painstakingly crafted. "Today, you will see what it means to be a hunter," Ajibode said, his voice low, as they moved through the dense underbrush. "There is more to it than skill. A hunter understands that he is part of the forest." They had journeyed for some time, their steps soft against the damp forest floor, when they heard a rustling in the branches above. Ajibode stopped, holding up his hand, and pointed to a cluster of thick, leafy branches not far above them. Through the foliage, Odedele could just make out a family of monkeys, their dark eyes watching the two figures below with a curious, mischievous glint. Ajibode brought his shakabula to his shoulder, his movements slow and precise. Odedele held his breath, his eyes locked on his father's, watching the practiced ease with which he moved, the calm in his face. But the monkeys were clever and swift. As soon as Ajibode lifted his gun, they chattered and leapt to another branch, disappearing with an agility that left the boy in silent awe. Ajibode lowered the gun, and a small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. The forest has its own way of testing you, Odedele. Not every hunt will end with a catch. Sometimes we simply watch and learn. They continued deeper into the forest, moving as one, their senses sharp and alert. The morning sun was now streaming through the trees, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow on the ground. Odedele's eyes wandered over every patch of grass, every clump of earth, seeking the subtle signs of the animals that lived here. His father had taught him the art of reading tracks, and today was his chance to put that knowledge to the test. As they moved further, Ajibode stopped suddenly, crouching low. Odedele followed his gaze and saw it, a fresh imprint in the soft earth, the distinct shape of a hoof. It was larger than any track Odedele had seen, the sign of a deer, possibly a buck, his father whispered. Odedele's heart quickened. A deer would be a prized catch, a feast for the family and a mark of honor in the village. Ajibode gestured for Odedele to move quietly as they followed the trail. Odedele's steps were soft, and his eyes scanned the ground for the faintest sign. A broken twig, a patch of flattened grass. Soon they found more clues. Nibbled leaves, hoof prints in the soil, a tuft of coarse fur caught on a low branch. The deer was close. They could almost feel its presence. They pressed on, their bodies tense with anticipation. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath. The air was still, and even the birds had quieted, as if they too were watching. Finally, they came to a small clearing, dappled with sunlight, and there, standing with a quiet grace, was the deer. Its antlers rose proudly, a crown that seemed woven from the forest itself. The deer's eyes were dark and intelligent, and for a moment, it felt to Odedele as though the creature were aware of them, as though it knew its role in this sacred dance of hunter and hunted. Ajibode raised his shakabula, every movement deliberate, precise. Odedele felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was more than a hunt. It was a rite of passage, a test not only of skill, but of understanding and respect for the life before them. But just as he steadied his aim, a strange sound echoed through the trees, a soft, eerie giggle. It was high-pitched and unsettling, as though the forest itself were laughing. Odedele felt a chill and glanced around, his heart pounding. In the branches of a nearby agbalumo tree, a small figure sat, watching them. It was a dwarf spirit, an aridan, no taller than Odedele's waist, with skin dark and wrinkled, laced with white markings. Its eyes were bright, gleaming with mischief, and a twisted smile played across its face. "Bami, do you see it?" Odedele whispered, clutching one of the charms his mother had given him. Ajibode lowered his gun, his face unreadable. "Yes, Odedele. Keep your charms close and do not speak to it." The aridan tilted its head, its smile growing wider. "Why hunt for deer?" it called in a voice like the rustling of leaves, "when I can lead you to a place where the animals are plenty and the hunt is easy." Odedele felt a strange pull toward the spirit, but his father's firm hand on his shoulder brought him back. Ajibode whispered an incantation and took a pinch of red powder from his pouch, sprinkling it on the ground between them and the spirit. The powder sizzled and flared, a faint crackle filling the air, and the aridan hissed, shrinking back. Its face twisted in anger, and it pointed a crooked finger at them. "Foolish hunters," it spat, "you cannot keep the forest's secrets forever." Ajibode tightened his grip on his gun, his voice strong and unwavering. This forest is home to all, both the living and the spirits. We are here to hunt, not to disturb you. The Aridan's laughter echoed once more, a chilling sound that lingered even after it had faded into the shadows of the trees. Odedele's heart raced, but he felt his father's strength steady him. They waited a moment, and then, as if in silent agreement, they turned to leave the clearing. The deer was gone, but they would not return to the village empty-handed. As they began their journey back, Odedele caught a glimpse of movement near the base of a tree. Emerging quietly, their soft grey bodies blending with the shadows, were two rabbits, large and plump. Ajibode crouched, motioning for Odedele to do the same. With practiced calm, he reached into his pouch and pulled out a charm, placing it in Odedele's hand. "This is the forest's gift to us," he whispered. "We take only what we need." Odedele held the charm tightly, feeling its warmth in his palm. His father raised his gun, aiming carefully at one of the rabbits. With a soft, controlled breath, he pulled the trigger, and one rabbit fell while the other disappeared into the underbrush. Odedele ran to retrieve their prize, holding it with reverence as his father murmured a prayer of gratitude. As they made their way back to the village, the weight of the hunt settled over Odedele, not just the thrill of capturing an animal, but the understanding of his place in the forest's delicate balance. When they reached home, the elders gathered, nodding in approval at the sight of the rabbit. Omotole smiled proudly, her eyes meeting Odedele's with a warmth that spoke of recognition. He had faced the forest, encountered its mysteries, and returned with its blessings. It was only the beginning, but Odedele knew he had taken his first true step into the life of a hunter.